You might feel like you're listening in the heat of the moment, but I challenge you to think back on the last time that happened and ask yourself honestly, was I listening to listen and understand, or was I listening to formulate my comeback, to react to them? That's not a conversation because you're still in your defensive mode. You've got your walls up. You are not fighting for your relationship. You are fighting against it. You are not viewing your partner as your teammate. You are viewing them as your enemy. Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about tunnel vision. We can get tunnel vision so easily when we are in an argument with our spouse. And it is when we choose to stay in that tunnel vision that gets us in the most trouble, that has conflict hurting our marriage more than helping our marriage. And I want to help you get out of this stupid tunnel so that you can expand your perspective and leverage conflict to benefit your relationship rather than letting it sever the connection that you two share and making marriage feel so much harder than you want it to. There is so much benefit to understanding your partner's perspective during conflict, but it doesn't go without its challenges. When we're in the heat of conflict, it is very easy to get caught up in our thoughts, our emotions, how we feel about things, what we thought they should have done, what they did wrong, how betrayed we feel, so on and so forth, right? But once you start getting in the habit, and it is a habit, of stepping into your spouse's shoes, perspective, it can be such a game changer for being able to leverage that conflict into something that makes your relationship stronger. And bonus, you get to resolve disagreements. You know those disagreements that you keep having, right? Maybe it's a different version every single time, but it's always the same reason. Those get to go away, or those get resolved faster. Those get to be prevented, okay? So we're going to talk about the benefits behind considering your spouse's perspective, why it matters, and practical strategies for how to deal with the challenges that you're facing that are making it hard for you to consider your partner's perspective, okay? So here's why it matters so much. If you have not heard about the Gottman Institute, they are like the relationship school. They are awesome. They're a great resource for you to learn from. They have awesome courses if courses are your thing. And they have done the most and the longest research when it comes to relationships. And they show that couples who regularly consider each other's perspective during arguments are more likely to resolve conflicts constructively. Keyword is constructively, okay? When it comes to conflict resolution, if you have empathy during the conflict, not only does it foster connection and reduce defensiveness, it also turns conflict into opportunities for growth, okay? Without this, without empathy, your fights will never be anything more than just a fight. a negative experience in your relationship, and it will hurt your relationship instead of help it. So to foster empathy in your relationship, that requires you working on understanding your partner's perspective so that you can open up communication and clarify misunderstandings that you might be working off of. Because when you don't consider your spouse's perspective, you are missing a huge piece of the truth. But when you do, you are giving them the benefit of the doubt, which will help them be more willing to open up, and you are taking in more information so that it's easier for you to move through the conflict and get into problem-solving mode and work as a team, right? So when you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, you are working off of the mentality that they are innocent until proven guilty, versus assuming the worst of them and they are guilty until proven innocent. So you are essentially forgetting the man that you married, who they are, what you know about them up until this point, and it's like you're tossing that in the garbage. You're like, no, I am only defining you by my own thoughts, my own perspective of what I experience in this one moment, and everything you have proven to me about who you are up until now is not applicable, which isn't fair, right? Because you are either choosing to see him as someone out to get you, or you are choosing to see him as someone who has your back and sometimes makes mistakes because they're also human. Now, if we were to flip this around and have him be viewing you in either one of these ways, which would you prefer? Right? I know I would prefer compassion over being given no benefit of the doubt. I would want someone to know that, yeah, I make mistakes and that I have good intentions, right? So can you believe that your husband has good intentions, even though maybe he hurt you, but didn't do it on purpose, okay? When both partners feel heard and validated and feel like they are being given the benefit of the doubt, it strengthens the emotional bond, the emotional intimacy in the relationship, which makes the connection stronger, which makes future communication and misunderstandings easier to handle. And your marriage is going to benefit from that as a whole. Plus, your kids are going to get to see what it looks like to see healthy conflict in action so that they can learn, oh, okay, this is how to handle communication. This is how to handle miscommunication and disagreements. And they won't go through all that drama of going around and around in circles, fighting each other, being critical of each other, blaming each other, and not coming out of it with any sort of productive solution. Okay? So yeah, you're like, Michelle, that sounds great. And it's really hard. And I've tried and it doesn't work. So what now, right? Like I said, it doesn't come without its challenges. However, just because we are experiencing a challenge doesn't mean that it's impossible to get through, okay? This is definitely a challenge that can be overcome. I've personally done this. I have come from a background with horrible communication, okay? I was not taught at all healthy communication. What I viewed is probably something that you have also experienced, which is passive aggressiveness, silent treatment, lack of awareness, a lot of blaming, criticism, name calling, yelling, all of that, okay? And yet, I have learned and practiced and created a habit for myself that allows me to have productive conversations with my husband, that has allowed me to take in his perspective in addition to mine and have healthier communication. And now we get to model that for our kids, but that doesn't go without saying that sometimes I make a mistake and sometimes I forget. But once you have this in your repertoire, in your toolkit, whatever, it is much easier to pull it out. And so I really want you to learn all of this so that you can change how you communicate and change the habits of the communication that you have with your spouse so that you can set yourself and your marriage up for success. Okay. So here's why it can be hard to see your spouse's perspective. Okay. We can get flooded by our emotions. Our emotions can get so intense that they block our ability to think clearly and listen to our partner. I am a very emotional person. I have very big feelings, especially when I'm frustrated and when I'm mad. And from my experience, when I'm feeling very emotional, the more emotional I am, the less logical I am. So, when emotion is high, logic is low. They work against each other. Not to say blame your emotions. Your emotions are very helpful to have, okay? That is our first sign and source of communication from our body saying something is wrong. But our thoughts try and interpret our emotions because our minds are meaning-making machines. So anytime we feel discomfort in our bodies and we label it as sadness, we label it as frustration or anger, our minds get to work to make sense of why we are in distress, right? And when we are feeling really emotional, our minds love to protect ourselves. And so we start to turn on our defense mechanisms, right? Whether it is blaming our partners, criticizing them, judging them, wanting to get away from them, you name it. There's so many different ways that you might react to this emotional distress because of the situation that has triggered you to feeling this way, right? But emotional flooding is one of the biggest barriers to having a productive conflict resolution. So when we're feeling emotional, we are not capable of being rational in the conversation. We are going to purely be defending ourselves or attacking our partner in defense of ourselves. And so when you are not feeling calm and you are feeling elevated, that is the worst time to have a conversation. This is coming from someone who thought that anytime there was a problem, I needed to talk about it right away. Otherwise, it meant that I didn't care. Or if I didn't talk about it right away, things would linger and fester and get worse. But over time and experience, I learned that there is absolutely no benefit to talking about things right away, or at least talking about them fully. You can somewhat address it, but don't get into it, knowing that you are not firing on all cylinders. Okay, you are not operating at your best. So the likelihood of you saying something that you're going to regret is very, very high. Okay, and if you care about your marriage, you want to set yourself up for success. And to do that, you want to make sure that you are feeling more calm, more neutral about the issue, giving yourself space and time to let the crazy, overwhelming thoughts subside so that you have the capacity to get clear on what it is that is happening with you and how you're experiencing it so that you have space to listen to your partner, okay? You might feel like you're listening in the heat of the moment, but I challenge you to think back on the last time that happened and ask yourself honestly, was I listening to listen and understand, or was I listening to formulate my comeback, to react to them? That's not a conversation because you're still in your defensive mode. You've got your walls up. You are not fighting for your relationship. You are fighting against it. You are not viewing your partner as your teammate. You are viewing them as your enemy. Okay? If this is your perspective, you are not ready to have a conversation about it. Plus, when we're emotional, our mind tries to find ways to make us right. It focuses on what you see and cherry picks what you see, what you hear to create evidence to support your own beliefs and ignore your spouse's. Again, not giving them the benefit of the doubt. So if you're believing your husband is being an asshole, being selfish, betraying you, it's going to cherry pick words that you hear, things that you see to confirm that that is true. And you're going to use that against them and use it in your argument. Meanwhile, they're going to look at you so confused, like, are we experiencing the same thing? Were we in the same situation? Because that is not what happened at all. That is not what I said. That is not what I meant. I didn't even do that. You're just not factoring in the whole picture. Their perspective is missing from the situation. And if you're missing key information, you're not going to be able to approach the conflict, the disagreement, with enough information to be able to move forward, to settle your nervous system, to settle your emotions, to be able to be open to considering different options, to be creative about the solutions that you can work with to move forward in your relationship and help it grow the two of you. Okay. Plus, there's also the fear of vulnerability, right? When we are seeing our partner's perspective, that requires us to be vulnerable, to admit that, oh, maybe I had a part in this. Spoiler alert, we always have a part in it, okay? And until you're willing and able to notice that you played a part in the situation that you're in, whether you enabled them to do something, you were choosing to see things a certain way without giving them the benefit of the doubt, you reacted poorly or strongly, you misunderstood something, that requires you to be willing to see mistakes that you've made. But when you are flooded with emotions, it's much easier for us to be like, nope, it was all you. You did everything. I did nothing. I am the victim here. You betrayed me, and that's it, right? So if you're in that stage of the conflict, take a break. You are not ready, okay? So here are some ways that you can start to help yourself consider your spouse's perspective during conflict. 1, pause and reflect. Now, I understand that this is potentially hard for you to do when you are in the heat of the moment because you just want to get back in there and talk it out and tell him all the things that he did wrong and how you feel and, make him feel as bad as you because misery loves company, right? But I encourage you to take a moment. If you don't have the capability of taking personal responsibility over the situation and noticing how you contributed to the situation that you're in, and you're not clear on how you feel or what you think about the situation or what you want, you are not ready, okay? Because the more prepared you are for the conversation, you're calm, you're clear about how you feel, why you feel that way, you know what you want, you are taking personal responsibility for how everything played out, you then have a bigger capacity to listen. Because instead of figuring out how you feel about things and what you want while they're talking, you already have that sorted out. You're like, okay, I am grounded in what I know about myself. I have taken the time to become more self-aware. And now I'm ready to listen to you and understand where you're coming from so I can take that information and expand my view so I no longer have tunnel vision. I have more of a 360 view of what's going on. And now I have everything I need to move forward to work with you. Instead of feeling like everything you're saying is competing against how I feel. Because how I feel can only be true if you know you're wrong. But guess what? Nobody likes to feel like they're wrong. Okay? And it can be true that you are having an experience and he's having an experience. It is not a competition. You can feel bad about what's happening, and he could be like, yeah, that was terrible for me too. Okay? This is not versus, this is and. Okay? In addition to this, taking deep breaths can help reset you. Okay? When you're able to take deep breaths, you're telling your body, we're safe. We don't have to run away. We're not in danger, okay? Because your body cannot tell the difference between physical danger and emotional danger. It's freaking out. But when we take time to take a few deep breaths, we can settle our nervous system. We can reset ourselves emotionally. We can avoid or end emotional flooding. And it's kind of like those, I don't know if you've ever seen these like calm down jars, where it's like a great imagery of how it feels in your mind when you are emotionally flooding. So imagine a jar of water and a lot of glitter, and then shake it up, right? It's like those snow globes, but like times 5, right? There's so much chaos going on. There's glitter floating everywhere in the water. But if you just let it sit and wait, gravity will do its thing and all the glitter will end up on the bottom. And all of a sudden, you have clear water again. You can see through it, okay? When we take time, we have more mental clarity. So take a few deep breaths when you feel your body is all chaotic and your mind is racing, and see what happens there. See if it's easier to take in what's going on with you and have the capability of listening to your partner and understanding them. Okay? Remember that before you get to his side of things, that you are missing a big part of the situation, that your thoughts and experiences are just one part of it, and it is biased, okay? Because your thoughts are shaped by your past, how you grew up, what experiences you've been in, previous relationships, things that you didn't get growing up or in past relationships. You're going to be looking for those things and you're going to be biased. That's just how we work, right? We are a walking being full of positive experiences and negative experiences in our past, and that colors our perspective. So that could very much be the reason why you might pick up on certain nuances that your husband does and you might, quote unquote, overreact. It's because you have previous experience with it not working out well. So that's why it's even more important to realize, oh, I'm missing a key part of this. I should not be so quick to judge or formulate any decisions or come to any decisions about what's going on without first talking to my partner, because what I think might be happening could be very, very off. Okay? Another thing to do is practice your active listening skills, right? Making sure that what you're hearing when you get to the point of talking is actually what they're saying. A lot of times we put different meaning and weight behind specific words depending on how we grew up, right? Something they might say could come off aggressive to us when really that wasn't their intention at all. So a tip that you can use is, I just heard you say this and I made it mean this. Is that what you meant for me to hear and the meaning that you meant for me to take away from that? When we clarify, this can avoid so many misunderstandings, because I can't tell you how often my husband has said something and I just was like appalled. I was so insulted, but I remembered, okay, I am married to a really good man. I highly doubt he was trying to insult me just now. So let me just clear this up before we move on. Let's hit a timeout, because if I keep going in this direction and assume that he meant what I think he meant, it's going to be World War III real quick in this house. And 100% of the time, I have been wrong. I have been wrong about my assumptions about what he meant, and giving him that opportunity to clear things up has helped our conversation calm down, and become more productive. Okay. Another thing you can do is ask open-ended questions, right? Not assuming anything, not those trap questions like where you are insinuating something and you're basically laying out a trap for him to go into, right? But no, just asking open-ended questions to seek out understanding, to uncover what was his motivation or feelings behind what happened. Why did he choose to do certain things, right? And your tone matters a lot here, okay? Because you could say, can you help me understand why this is important to you? Or can you help me understand why you did the things you did? Versus, why would you do that? Okay, the second is very accusatory and very condescending. You are giving away a lot of connotations and assumptions based on how you're saying it, versus, can you help me understand what happened? Like that's very different. That seems more open, warm, willing, and you are wanting to work things out versus the former, which is very like accusatory, and that's going to close them off right away. Okay. So practice these things. And what's even better is not only practicing in the heat of the moment. Okay. Practice during everyday interactions too, with low stake disagreements, low stake conflict, low stake challenges, because when you practice these things, it will create a habit for you. So when it really counts, when it's like those more heated moments, it will be more natural to you to do these things. Okay? Because the issue with tunnel vision is that you have limited perspective, and in this situation, what you really need is to expand this perspective so that you can draw in more empathy and compassion from yourself to give to the situation, so that empathy begets empathy and compassion begets compassion. Okay. He's going to be more willing to want to understand your perspective. He's going to want to give you more compassion, and the conversation will have a better fighting chance of being calm and productive and actually help your relationship, rather than you two essentially just defending yourselves, having two different conversations and getting absolutely nowhere. Okay. So to recap, it is so important to find different ways to help yourself be willing and open to understanding and considering your spouse's perspective during conflict. And yeah, it's challenging. Understanding what's happening in your mind is going to help you challenge yourself to be like, okay, that is one potential scenario. What are some other reasons why this played out the way that it did? And what is it that I am needing? What is it that I am feeling, right? Bringing in that curiosity that is so important, right? The most important mindset that you can apply to your marriage. And then, of course, trying out different ways for you to settle your nervous system and becoming a better listener, asking better questions so that you can encourage open communication, so you two can get back to feeling like you're a team, coming up with solutions that will help move you two forward and learn more about each other, learn more about yourself, and become a stronger couple, so that not only you can enjoy your marriage more and feel like you guys can tackle anything and get through anything and feel stronger, but also model to your kids how healthy communication works. Okay? That's all I have for you in this episode. Do what you can to notice that you are, in fact, experiencing tunnel vision, and try these things to get yourself out of it. Okay? If this episode helped you, let me know. Reach out to me on Instagram. Send me a message. Let me know what your favorite takeaway was and what you are going to try going forward. And if you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please share it with them. That would help this show grow so much and help your friend in navigating through all the challenges that come with being married, which we know are a lot. And if you love this show, please take the time to leave a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. I would be so grateful. And I will catch you back here on the next episode. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.